right, everyone. I've been holding on that one. I was just enjoying Toby's face before we came live on the screen as it ticked and he realized what the song was. What do you think, brother? How do you did I catch you by surprise with that one? I I agree. I think it's the same thing, and I think it probably will give Rob some headaches on YouTube and some of the other channels. Yes, yeah, there was. Yep, that is one of my favorite versions of that, and many other versions that guy does. Liam Moro Kelly out of Finland or out of Norway. He redoes. Yeah, no, Norway. He does it. Norway. He does all the instruments, does everything. He puts a heavy metal spin on tons of music. Just look up Leo. The dude is awesome. I'm hoping that it gets by some of the algorithms that look for copyright music, but we'll find out, I guess, here pretty soon. So, anyways, how you doing, Toby? Oh, oh, yeah. I can hear you. Are they saying they can't hear you? Well, hold on a second. I think I see. I may see the issue. Hold on a second. Um, yep. Mom is our quality control check. Go ahead, Toby. Give me a say something. Let me see. Let me look at the meters.
Testing.
Oh yeah, you're solid now. You're a five by
Look at
five.
that.
The
All
sig-
right.
the
Well,
Sigo
here
is
we are.
happening. The brigade Sigo there, aka Mom. Make sure she corrected
Yeah.
our stuff.
That's the
That's
G6.
the G.
Uh,
Oh man, that is the G
that's not the
six.
G6, actually. I, now
You
that I say that,
you
I
know
take it all
you
back. I
you
take it all back.
did
I
you
take
see
it
the
all
look
back.
on my face? I was just like
I,
having
I take it. I take it all back. Sometimes, like the line goes out, and you just wish you could reel it in beforehand.
yeah.
But but for those of you tuning in right now, I know you're like, "Why are we on so late?" Well, we're on late tonight because we're making an accommodation for a, a guest that we've had on the show before, Joe Collins, and unfortunately, he's enjoying travel delays. He just called in and he was like on an airport tram, and we were like, we're just gonna reschedule again because we want everyone to hear what he has to say. We want to hear what he has to say. We have some great questions and some dialogue that we want to have with him. So we're going to try again later in the week. So so that it hasn't been a total loss for everyone that's been waiting with bated breath tonight.
Mm.
With the delayed time, we'll go for a couple of minutes, cover a couple of items, and then we will retire.
Yeah, that's well definitely we don't want to blow off the show. We got a lot of things coming up in the summer months as we have in many past summer months. And in fact, we're kind of not going to let it all out of the bag here, but we will just kind of say that there are some show format changes coming up in the next couple of weeks. We're going to do that we just have to do to accommodate and still be able to do the show. But with that being said, we wanted to make sure that we still had something tonight talked about as people tune in. I didn't expect a lot of people to tune in live because it is so late. People that kind of tune in the show and listen to watch regularly, they kind of make sure they fit it into with their normal Thursday night routine. And I'm sure this kind of blew themselves out. So people putting kids to bed and doing all those kind of things. So for those that are tuning in later, listening in, again, we won't go super long, but we definitely have some topics to talk about. Toby, there is
We do.
as every week has always proven on this show for as
Yeah.
long as we've had it, there's no shortage of stuff to talk about.
There isn't. I think I'll lead off because I want to talk about something quick and domestic, and I have a couple of things that we'll ramble through, and then I want to get international
Into
because
it.
we're both international men of hysteria.
Mm.
But
Yes, we are. I was about to say
so,
I was about drinking Canadian beer, but like I'm drinking Yingling, so that's Pennsylvania. So that's about as
which
international.
is, I mean, basically another country. So the no, immediately following the election, one of the very first things that the new administration, the Biden Harris administration did was they canceled the Keystone Pipeline. And when canceling the Keystone Pipeline, they promised a lot of people, like the tens of thousands of people that lost their jobs, that new green energy jobs were on the rise. In fact, I want to say it was right around January 26th or 27th. There was this guy named John Kerry. Perhaps you've heard of him, former presidential candidate, former Secretary of State, now
Wounded,
whatever,
wounded, wounded Vietnam vet.
allegedly,
Wounded
allegedly,
Vietnam vet.
allegedly.
Allegedly, like
Um,
an ostrich.
it was a sick boat that he was on. The boat was sick, but he stood in front of a podium and told the American people that, the people that were losing their jobs really weren't losing their jobs because the number one job on the rise was green energy jobs, and they were going to create tens and tens of thousands of these new green energy jobs, and this was going to be a huge opportunity for those that lost their jobs to have a better job.
I show my green, the green energy.
Yeah. Now, as it turns out, the existing green energy jobs, which there wasn't a ton of, the existing green energy jobs, due to tax changes that the current administration have had, and due to the tax changes that they've enacted in the past, like, I don't know, say 60 days, uh, have created the situation where the green energy jobs that were in existence, not the ones that were going to be created, the ones that were in existence are now being like canceled. They're being shut down. The companies like the wind farm manufacturing companies, due to the changes that are going on to them, a lot of them are starting to go. They're not going to be able to survive these changes, and so it it it's really, like what the reason I'm bringing this up is because it's just an example of, we don't really know what's going on. Someone can stand in front of a podium and say, "Hey, this is the situation. The sky is purple," and everyone's like, "Oh, it's so awesome! I love the purple sky. The purple sky is the best sky." And you know, come to find out, the sky is not purple. It's not green. It's blue, and that's because God loves the infantry.
Cool.
And these jobs don't exist. And not only did they take jobs away from people that had them, um, and promise them jobs in a different industry, the industry that they promised those jobs in, those jobs are disappearing. And so it's quite disheartening. Um, Another thing I want to kind of bring up about this, uh, Thursday mornings, I get up early and I try to watch a little bit on each major news network, and kind of make sure that I'm kind of up to date. At the house, I watch it on TV, and then when I get to the office, I do some research online. So I'm kind of spun up on the news cycle, if you will, before we have the show. So like, I'm not a total like idiot. And I saw something really interesting today, and it was while I was listening to Fox News, watching Fox News. It was early in the morning. The guy Bill Hemmer
Yep.
was the anchor, and they were interviewing a guy that had just lost his job in the green energy sector, and they were kind of talking about these tax changes and how
In
these
the
jobs are
in the
disappearing.
in the green energy, not like oil or coal, but green energy
No,
sector.
this guy was working a wind farm, wind farm manufacturing building, like the big, wind
Windmills.
turbines,
Yeah.
and like their factory is being shut down because they can no longer, operate under the new, tax restrictions that have been placed on them by the administration. And this young man was, like, he wasn't a good interview. Um, you know how how they selected him, or how the producer found him. I don't know. Um, he wasn't charismatic. He wasn't a good speaker, and he was visibly angry. And while they asked him some questions, he was giving kind of curt yes and no answers, and wasn't elaborating, which was making, like, obviously the interview tough. And then Bill Hemmer kind of struck a nerve with asking about like his job and the disappearance of his job. And the interviewee kind of goes on a quick little tirade. And in the quick little tirade, and it was very fast, he calls the president of the United States the dumbest bastard and something else.
Oh, he was upset, huh? So he had a fire in his
He,
belly.
yeah, he was upset. And while as a viewer, hearing the preface of why this guy is on, and then reading the information and seeing it, like it displayed, I can see why he's upset. Here he is, he works, learns, and gets trained in an industry, gets told this industry is going to be this, the saving grace of the world and the nation. And then, due to some weird political shift, and some weird taxation deal, uh, and an industry takes a major hit with like loss of jobs. But he like took offense to the president, and he verbalized that offense. Bill Hemmer corrected him, and like, uh, everyone's probably like, "Why are you bringing this up?" Well, a lot of people think that if you're watching CNN or you're watching MSNBC, all you're going to get is like, ice cream licking fans of
One side
the
or the
president
other.
of the United States.
Right.
You're going to get one side. You're going to get the left side. And if you're watching Fox News or OAN or whatever that other Newsmax or whatever those channels are, all you're getting is the right side of this. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because Bill Hemmer corrected his guest when the guest insulted the president of the United States. He said, "You cannot talk about the president of the United States that way." And there's no doubt in my mind that Bill Hemmer probably is not a fan of some of the policies of the president of the United States.
Yep.
And I was really impressed at the humbleness, the humility, and the moral courage that it probably took, um, in that moment in time as a journalist, and the professionalism to like, hey, that's the president of the United States. I get that you're hurting, and you have a strong opinion about this, but let's not start slinging that. Let's keep to the task at hand. Let's talk about the issue. Let's not start going down in this diatribe of name calling and stuff like that.
Right.
And I got to tell you, I haven't had much faith in media, especially journalists, uh, as of late. But in the past week, you got a journalist on air, talking about her employer muzzling her and censoring her,
Yep.
and then turning over, you know, recordings to Project Veritas,
And then getting terminated, getting fired. But
and,
yes.
and then losing her job for it.
Right. Knowing all well she was probably going to.
Yeah, and but standing by that objective, journalistic ethic that hasn't been present in many many years.
Oh man, long time.
And then Bill Hemmer today, kind of doing the same thing, and I'm like, I typically, like my faith in journalists hasn't been that good lately, and I witnessed that, and I was like, man, he could have let that slide. I mean, there's a lot of journalists out there, and I don't think it matters what network you're on.
Yeah, he could have said afterwards, after he dropped, like, he shouldn't have said that. We apologize on, whatever. But he did it right.
He corrected him.
And how did the
like
guest take it? How did the guest, did he?
Well, he he took the correction, and then the interview was pretty much terminated after that. But it was nice to see. It was nice to see a man, or I guess it doesn't really matter if it was a man or a woman. It's just nice to see an adult exercising moral courage.
Right.
And that was going to be uncomfortable. It was going to be hard, even though you're separated and you're looking and talking to each other through microphones and screens. Like, I was impressed by
And
that.
it's
So
funny you bring
I
that
just
up.
want.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up. I think we've seen that twice this week. We've seen it twice in one in an organization, the media that you talked about. Pretty much everyone expects them to talk to one echo chamber or the other, and rarely do they cross over. That was by far that was one. The other one was an organization that most people were afraid of being slanted one way or another. Even though I think most Americans didn't want it to be, and that's a Supreme Court. Right. So what we also
Oh
saw
yeah.
this week was Supreme Court is releasing a number of rulings and decisions this week and next week. And what we saw was, a country that has been polarized by, the president that a justice is nominated by, meaning that that person is always going to vote and support one way or the other. And we all know, we all seen the statue of justice being blind, holding the scales up with a blindfold on, and ruling purely on the merits and the definition of law as how it's written, and in their case, pretty much by the founding fathers, and in the Constitution and amendments. So to see, and everyone thought, okay, Sotomayor and Bayer and all these different folks are always going to vote left, and
Mm-hmm.
Barrett and Roberts is kind of both ways, will always vote right. So we saw all nine justices unanimously vote 9-0 against essentially
Mm-hmm.
people are saying, it's not, it's just the way to frame it, against the LGBT community because of
I don't think that's
I don't think,
okay. Go ahead.
but they see it that way. The LGBT community sees it that way, right? They supported 9-0 that a Catholic church daycare could go by their beliefs and values and morals, which maybe did not please many in the LGBT community, and everyone expected it to be split, right? The Republicans one way, conservatives, or the Republican nominated judges one way, and the Democrat nominated ones the other way. So we saw that happen, and then we also saw them rule on Obamacare, which ticked off a lot on the right because they ruled 7-2, saying that Obamacare, they didn't kind of punt it down the road. They didn't say Obamacare was legal, this or that. They just said the states didn't have their stuff together, and for lack of a better term, the best I understand it as an idiot, that they didn't have all their stuff together and couldn't bring the suit or the charges or whatever it is that they did. They weren't saying it was good or bad or right or wrong. They just said the process it followed wasn't the right way.
Yeah, they said the case didn't merit.
Right. So you had Republicans, including Barrett and Kavanaugh, ruling for that. Right. So I think at the same time, when it's encouraging to see the media, maybe just one or two people, but maybe it's a start. Kind of go back and not always say or whatever based on the network they're on what people think they should, but also have the Supreme Court justices, and it should be any justice, any judge, but at least they showed that, look, that's great, this guy nominated me. That does not mean I'm voting the way his party believes all the time. I'm truly going to do it on the merits of the case and the law on the book. So I think that was a very positive thing too.
No, I'm not as the Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act, challenge. I'm not as I can't speak to it as much because I know one of the reasons or the major reason it kind of got pushed was very legally technical. Um, but the and that was 7-2. The 901, it also kind of rejuvenated my faith
Yeah.
In the system, right? Checks
Right.
and balances.
Right.
Here in America, and one of the reasons why I'm here, it's one of 10 reasons I'm here actually. Uh, it, and the number one reason I'm here is because you have the right uh, to free speech. You have the right to free assembly. You have the right to take up grievance against your governance, and you have the right to practice your faith as you see fit. And like I'm happy to declare, if you're new to the show, guess what? I'm a Christian. If you're not new to the show, you probably have figured that out by now. I'm a believer, and I'd like to think that I'm unapologetic about it. And the reason I'm that way is because I'm blessed enough to live in a country that I can declare that without retribution and without fear. And I can attend church as I see fit.
Yep.
Now, with that, comes a belief structure. And that belief structure is not shared by everyone that I'm in society with. I have neighbors to my left and my right that do not share my faith. But I am protected by the First Amendment to have that faith. And you should not be able to persecute me in any way because I hold that faith. And just like I should not be able to persecute you for your
Beliefs or
faith,
non-beliefs or
your
whatever.
belief structure, your lack of beliefs.
Right.
You know, this is one of those moments where that bumper sticker coexist should truly, mean something.
Yeah. Too bad a lot of people that have that don't always necessarily want to
They,
coexist.
they don't really grasp that whole
No,
coexist thing.
they don't. They don't.
But
But no, I agree. I'm
what
like you.
what
It really raised my, like, wow, okay, maybe there's a turning point, right?
and
And I think we see it with Hollywood and media starting to turn against the cancel culture. We see people like, this isn't okay. This went too far. We're starting to see some common sense. I think, Toby. I don't know. Maybe I'm leaning over my skis too far here. But it seems like we're
well,
starting to see people have some common sense. I don't
well,
know.
like I don't know if you're leaning over too far yet or not. I mean, but you're definitely picking up momentum and inertia has taken place. But for those listening that don't really understand what's going on, what the Supreme Court ruled against, uh, or ruled on, sorry, not against, but what ruled on, and what's being asserted that they ruled against, which they actually didn't rule against. Uh, all they did is they upheld religious, freedom,
Right.
and a the lawsuit, as I understand, that was brought to the Supreme Court was one where a same-sex couple was trying to claim discrimination and force a Catholic diocese run adoption firm from allowing them to get a child. Now, the Catholic faith, which is not the denomination that I am, but the Catholic faith believe that marriage is ordained by God and exists only between a man and a woman. And this is a doctrinal or dogmatic item. And so when someone outside of their faith tried to impose this change, and that's what it wasn't an internal thing, it was an external pressure put on this diocese to kind of legally force them to go against their belief structure. Now, while I might not agree with the premise uh, of the case, I absolutely respect that if they believe a certain way, they should not be forced to abandon their belief structure. Just like, I would find it abhorrent to stop someone of the Islamic faith from being able to bathe prior to prayer. You know, if there's something that is important, to the sacrament of your faith, who are we to like hold you from that? You should have that right, just like you shouldn't have the right to hold me from
Right. Right.
taking communion
Yeah.
or whatever it might be.
So
So
it was an inspiring week to see a couple things there turn around, and we'll see what else comes out. And again, it doesn't matter whether you agreed with the Supreme Court ruling in one case or another or didn't. You should still be encouraged that they're making decisions based on how they best interpret the law and all the
Yeah.
technicalities of it. And
Checks
again,
and balances.
right,
Checks and
right.
balances.
That should be more inspiring, and you should be happier
Yeah.
about that than you are sad maybe they didn't rule one way or the other.
Yeah.
And
Checks
we're
and
seeing
balances.
the true colors of people coming out, because there are people on one side of the aisle after the 9-0 ruling that are just coming out and slandering and cussing out the Supreme Court just because they just expected them to vote one way. And they're, how dare you do that, and so on and so forth. And it's just, it kind of leads me to this. Maybe in the next election, you should follow the advice of Gear for Grunts and vote for Mando and Fett. I got to highlight this nice looking shirt.
That's right.
And our sponsors, this nice looking shirt made by, I guess, would you say is it made by Kermode Outdoor Development Group? Is that would be the right?
It's in collaboration.
Collaboration.
For sure.
Yes. A great shirt made here for Gear for Grunts, in addition to many of our other sponsors, including Kermode Outdoor Development Group, Veterans Outdoors, Enlisted 9 Fight Company, BooHammer.com, Alpha Elite Performance. Get that Elite 15 discount code. Get that 15% off. They got some new product hitting the street I've seen over the last couple of weeks. So I just realized, I'm like, we're a half hour in, and I have not mentioned our sponsors. But love my shirt. Big thanks to Doug out there for the hookup, and Toby for this great looking hat, because we were together last week and we had a great time down there.
And that was my Christmas gift, actually, right? We did our Christmas gift exchange. I got my
Christmas in July.
It was almost Christmas in July. No, I got my traditional gift from the Stewart family, which is our Christmas ornament for our tree.
Hey, you're ahead of the game. And get that sucker up first.
Yeah, and then I got you the hat from the Hodge twins, which you're a big fan of.
And you got some of the best meat you've ever eaten.
And I did get some hickory smoked meats.
Yes.
And put it all up in my mouth.
All up in your grill.
But the let's transition real fast.
Yeah. We've had our presidents. We were just talking. Oh, sorry, hit my mic. You were just talking about the president, and he just came back from really his first overseas international trip.
It was his first.
It was his first
as president. As president, it was
as president. He's been around for a while, so he's done a few trips. But his first one as the president, and a pretty big one too. Really heavily watched G7 summit. They did the reenactment of chessboard pieces. That was some interesting photo ops there. Your boy Trudeau there with his hair just flowing in the breeze. And
he's got some COVID hair.
I should have said your boy, because that wasn't nice. Then meeting with President Putin from Russia, and a lot of animosity and things leading up to that, and of course it's been pretty nonstop since then. With a very interesting, I don't know if you watched it yesterday. I watched a little bit that I could. They did not do a joint press conference, which is kind of unorthodox. Typically, two world leaders do that after they meet. They kind of do a joint one side by side. The famous ones are, if you think of when President Bush was in Iraq and he had the shoe thrown at him, right? That was a very famous one. And just about every one of the ones President Trump did were kind of famous. They were always, he had some pretty remarkable ones too, where he would sit out there for hours and just talk. But they did separate ones yesterday, and the Russian President Putin's, the way he did and conducted his, and the questions he was asked, was just, distinctly different from how President Biden did his. He was kind of coat off, throwing it on the ground, sunglasses off, sunglasses on. He was kind of, getting some softballs like he's gotten, but he also got some pretty hard questions too. I don't know what your perspective on it was, but it seemed like I did kind of walk away from watching those thinking, I wonder how many of those press people in President Putin's probably are not going to be seen after tomorrow. Like there was some, he had some zinged at him. I'm like, that person may disappear. Like, I mean, the one in the U.S. one, the one CNN reporter, she got yelled at by the president, when he got snippy with her at the end, and then, of course, he apologized later. But that was about the extent of his. But President Putin seemed a little perturbed.
Yeah. So President Putin, puts himself in front of the press corps, international press corps, and, takes what he gets. the fact that they didn't do a joint conference is because like Putin is really good um, at dealing with the press. I mean, I'm not saying this as a fan of the guy because I'm not, uh, but I can respect his ability to handle the press.
Yeah.
One thing that President Putin is notoriously and infamously good at is PR and press. Like, dude, manages like a champ.
And stoic. I mean, he doesn't show any emotion. I mean, he's
Yeah,
just,
he
yeah.
he is he is calm, cool, collected, super witty. Um, quick on his feet. Sly like a fox. Um, he he handles it exceptionally well. Our president does not. Um, uh, it's not that he doesn't. He can't, and he's not permitted to.
No, he's always apologizing.
It's very telling when he opens up a press conference by saying there, as everyone knows, there's a list of who I'm allowed to talk to.
And then he reads that list every time, and he looks up and like
Yeah,
Joe Blow and Susie Q, and yeah.
yeah, and he's only taking questions from people that his team believe are going to be favorable, or going to ask favorable or softball like questions, and like that.
But even some of the press, I'm hearing they're starting to get a little perturbed. I mean, they're.
No, I mean, like there's people that are constantly being snubbed. There's entire networks that are constantly being snubbed.
And they're seeing how his handlers handle him and what they do, and they're starting to like, we have no access. Which is, honestly, good, like him or hate him, 180 degrees from President Trump, who would walk out there and be like, throw me everything you got, and we'll sit out here in the sun for 2 hours, and I'll just keep answering. May not have liked the answers, but he just opened it wide open. His press conferences, his press briefings were, I mean, they were almost like the nightly best, probably getting some of the best ratings news has ever had, I would imagine. Because you didn't know what he was going to say.
No, like, and you tuned in because you knew what you were getting was like someone shooting from the hip.
Right.
Like there were straight shots, but what you saw is what you get. It's really interesting when you put it in perspective of a award-winning documentary. And it bothers me that I have to put the word award-winning in front of it, but I'm pretty confident that it did win an award, by Michael Moore, Fahrenheit 9/11. The headlining aspect of that documentary was poking fun at then President George W. Bush's receiving the news in public on camera that the United States was under attack. And they put an entire storyline and documentary lambasting the leadership of the president together, and heralded it globally.
Right.
We can't even get the current administration to hold a proper news conference. Like you got Jen Psaki, the Spocks, for the White House, just doing what she does.
Circle back.
A lot of circle back.
Yep.
A lot of, you'd have to ask them. That's, like there really isn't much information being shared there. There's some talking points being shared, but there's, in terms of informative and stuff like that, you're not getting it. And you just don't know, like there's no credibility in it. And then you get the president of the United States saying he has to answer to somebody in terms of what he can talk about, which is such an interesting message, and it sounds like a weird signal.
Yeah, the first time he said it, he was like, "I'm going to get in trouble." Right? It
was like from who?
It was almost like, okay, Jill's going to get on him or something. But it's happened.
Like, who are you going to get in trouble from?
You're the president of the effing United States, the most freest, biggest superpower in the world.
Yeah. Who are you getting in trouble from?
He said it 3 or 4 times now. Like,
I know, but like that's that's a weird message.
Kamala?
That's like a little kid saying like, I'd love to say this word, but man, I'm going to get my mouth washed out with soap.
His chief of staff, Kamala, his wife, the doctor. I mean, who is? I mean, I can't imagine any president. I surely can't imagine president, but I can't imagine any president coming in and like getting an ass chewing by saying like, "Hey, you shouldn't have said like, I'm the president. You're done. Like, pull that badge, get him out of here." Like, I can't
Yeah.
imagine anyone with the cojones to walk into the president of the United States, maybe his wife, right? Maybe the spouse, something like that, would get away, but would never probably take that leap to say, "Hey, you shouldn't have done that." That was, it's one thing, and we both have had this happen. I know you, my wife, and your wife, and mine both. Probably like we write
I
something,
get corrected.
we say something on air, we
I
write
get corrected.
something, and we're like, "You probably shouldn't have done that. You probably should have worded
Yeah.
that differently." That's one thing, but to sit there and say, "I'm going to get in trouble for this," no.
No, and so like every time he says that, and he said it more than once. Every time he says that, like I'm like, from who?
Right.
And then part of me is also like, I always think about perfect. I think of things in a very business style, manner at times, and I think of him as a CEO, and the people are the board members. And man, like a CEO has accountability to his board members, but he's still a CEO.
And can make decisions and all that
He
and do what he wants to
he's
do.
the
He or she can
he's
do
the
what they want.
president. He's the president of the United States.
Right. Who
Like
does he answer
he's
to? The
he
people?
he's that the person.
Who does
Like
he answer to? The person, the people in 4 years?
he
Yeah, but that's it.
yeah. Like
He doesn't answer to Congress. He don't answer to Pelosi. He doesn't answer to the Supreme Court.
no
Nobody.
no like
You know,
so like and it sends a weird message to our allies
and our entire country.
and our enemies as
Yeah,
well.
and our entire country to sit there and go,
Yeah.
who the hell's in charge? Right. And then I've seen some analysis of this trip. Right, the scene from the other night where he, after the press briefing, he sat there with, and I saw some great breakdown of where he's sitting there with President Putin, and they're talking to the press, and one of the things I heard was like, and if you go back and watch, you can see it's almost like, President Putin's sitting there, legs spread, wide open, like "come at me, bro," that kind of stuff. A total like white, like the body language stuff. You cross your arms versus you open up. You feel vulnerable, but if you're fully confident, you open up. And then you got President Biden, legs crossed, high up, bent over, kind of shrugged, kind of like almost trying to curl up into a ball. And President Putin said, and then they showed a scene of when President Putin and President Trump were in the thing, and like Trump's on the edge of a seat, legs open, like leaning forward, like he's about to pounce, that kind of stuff. And it was just interesting to hear the breakdown. And regardless if the person doing the analysis was slanted one way or another, you can see it with your own eyes, and you're like, yeah, it makes total sense. You got a guy sitting back confident, legs open, arms out, and then you got another guy just kind of all curled up. And it just, every one of the, I mean, the people that the President Biden has around him, either he's not listening to, or he really has some of the same D team that President Obama had, who didn't always have the A players, that are not giving him the best advice. I mean, even President Trump, even though he was kind of full of himself and kind of, probably thought he knew all the right answers, he still surrounded himself, and sometimes pretty frequently, because if they didn't perform, he got rid of them. But he still tried to surround himself with a lot of A players. He tried to surround himself with good lieutenants, like a commander does, right? Good NCOs that can help execute and that kind of stuff and give sage advice. I don't know who President Biden has around him doing that.
Well, I mean, the President Trump took on people that were political adversaries.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
and business adversaries.
yeah, like, I the biggest one that always sticks him, out is Secretary Mattis. Secretary Mattis and President Trump couldn't be further aligned politically.
Right.
And he took him on because he was like, I think this is the right guy for the job, and gave him a shot. And like when he was like doing the job, he did a decent job. When he got political and stopped doing the job, like it was time for him to go. And he did that, and he
Right.
knew that it was time for him to go, and he took himself out. But it's body language, like you were saying, is such a important thing. There's a clip going around of President Biden being lost while he's there and walking around a cafe and then having to get like people yelling at him and asking him questions and like he clearly doesn't know where he's at, he clearly doesn't know what he's doing. And there's a group of people at a table in this cafe, outdoor cafe patio type area, looking at him, and like the look on their face is like disbelief, it's laughter, it's
Were they just regular civilians just sitting like
they
regular?
were just people. Yeah, they were just
He didn't
people.
have
And
his
you know,
secret. I
here's
haven't seen this
the
video.
leader of the free world stumbling, mumbling, and bubbling his way around this thing, and he looked like an elderly man that like had lost his way out of the home, or the home was on a field trip, and he got sidetracked looking at a butterfly, and here come the caretakers to like scoop him up, and they did.
I got to look for this video. I
um
haven't seen this one. I didn't know about this one.
and it's
It's sad.
it is,
Yeah.
because it looks like, and please, people, understand this is coming from a place of love. uh it looks like your grandfather that's got Alzheimer's or dementia, that wandered away from his caretaker at the home. And like, man, you feel for the guy, like,
Right.
I'm a man of compassion, and when you watch that, it's sad, and you're like, man, I don't want to see that. I don't want my friend's dad, or if my dad was alive, I wouldn't want that to be seen. I'd want him to be looked at and remembered of the mountain of a man that he was.
Right.
And how like we hold him in our hearts, and to see someone kind of like out there flapping like that, and then like you realize that we're not talking about your friend's dad. We're talking about the president of the United States of
Right.
America,
Right.
at not just a function, but a function of the most influential and powerful world leaders, the G7.
Yeah. Which is one up from the G6. Just saying.
It's a solid out.
Yeah. And I mean, Germany, UK, Canada, Russia, U.S. I mean, you talk about the top, France, countries in there, and how many? I mean, many people I know during when the election happened was like, what did this country just? I mean, people. I heard the comments back when the election happened, like, this is elderly abuse. I can't believe this guy's gonna be like, he should not have been running for president. Shouldn't have done this. Maybe this is a sign. But anyways, it wasn't a great showing. There's been a lot of analysis. Obviously, I've seen some of the stuff on the left. If you watch some of them, they think it was the greatest political jockeying, and he did great and all that kind of stuff. If you listen to people on the right, they say what they say, that he gave everything away to Putin and he didn't stand up to the challenge and all that stuff. I mean, everyone, like you just talked about, Toby, you get up in the mornings, you watch kind of all sides, try to make the decision up yourself, and go from there, not just listen to what one chamber says to you or the other. But it is, I would like to say I hope this was just a one-time snafu, but as we always said in the Army, hope is not a method, and
It's not a strategy.
And I say that in the civilian work force. But yeah, so I mean, it's he's back now, and we'll see what happens and all that kind of stuff. But I know, right now I can tell you in the States, he's 100 something days in, and the economy's not looking great. Jobs reports aren't looking great. Taxes are going, gas prices are going. Don't even get me started on lumber or ammo. But just the inflation. I mean, you see it all the time now. They're talking. It's inflation. You got the border, still wide open. You got Governor Abbott now dropping big coin to build his own wall. You got Florida
asking for donations.
He's got crowdsourcing. He's got GoFundMe up for it.
No, that's
probably doesn't.
Something I never thought I'd ever see is the government
asking for donations. Yeah,
asking for donations.
And then you have all this going. You got a mayor of one of our largest cities writing emails. It sounds like she was on crack when she wrote them, or she's truly like the world's worst boss. And I think there's a lot of people that probably could go along with that. And why people in their town, why and in their city and cities across country are getting slayed. I want to talk about that for a second. Three mass shootings in Chicago in the last week. The latest one, four people executed, shots in the head. Eight people in the house shot at 5:25 in the morning, and four of them executed. Pretty much assassination style, right there, shot in the head. You got a shooting in Austin, Texas, last week. Pretty much the night after I left, literally the night after I left. And, a whole bunch of people, 13 shot, I think one killed. And now it comes out today, it was between two groups of teenagers from the Colleen Harker Heights area who just
Mm-hmm.
saw each other across the street and were like, "What's up, bro? What you looking at?" And
Yep.
talking smack and started pulling out guns in the middle of 6th Street at 1:30 in the morning, which means it was packed. There were people grabbing some slices of pizza, leaving the club, everything like that. Toby. Every time I've been down there, usually not this last time. Because of work, I'm usually down on 6th Street some. Shooting 13 people, mass shooting. You got shootings in Savannah, Georgia. You got. I just saw one a little bit ago. There's just one in Phoenix. There's a mass shooting in Phoenix that just happened, and one killed, dozens in a drive-by shooting. It's happening all over. But good for the country. The couple in St. Louis that had to protect their house from BLM protesters marching and breaking through their gate and threatening to rape and burn them and all that stuff. Well, they just had their guns taken away. So they just had to plea out, and they took their guns away because they can't even protect themselves. This country is, whether it's at the border, whether it's the job situation, whether it's the economy, but I guarantee. Oh, and also, by the way, the entire riot squad of the Portland Police Department just resigned.
Just quit.
Yes,
Yeah.
following what happened in Buffalo last year,
Yeah.
when the thing happened in Buffalo, they took note from that, and because they said one of their guys shoved a photographer and he was charged with that, they entirely just resigned. This country, man, the sucking sound is getting louder and louder as we spin around the drain. I mean, I don't know. And ammo's hard to find. I'll stop there and see what you got to say.
No, it's you know the you can see, and this is something that I'm not saying this as an "I told you so," and I don't want anyone to take it that way, but you can see the direct reflection of policies uh, play out, and we can see this in every administration. You can pick an administration in the past 100 years, and you will find a policy that administration did, and it plays out. There's this weird misunderstanding and this naivety within the voting base that won't happen. That you know it's really not like that. And there's a lot of people that voted against Trump while they all enjoyed his policies, and they enjoyed the benefit of the economy. They enjoyed the better relationships and the more solid footing that we were on internationally, the domestic policies that were improved, the protection of education for minorities. Like, well, they enjoyed these benefits, they just didn't like him personally. Orange man bad.
Right.
And they were like,
bad tweets.
no matter what, it can't be worse than having to listen to some mean tweets and an annoying voice, and a guy that's like extremely self-righteous. Well, like, you have the state government of Texas asking for donations to help secure the border because of a failed federal policy. You have, police forces quitting and doing mass exodus because the promotion of, policy. Like, you can see it. You can see how taxes and tariffs can affect the prices of homes being built. Lumber is astronomically high,
Right.
and that's because of taxation. That's because of tariffs. That's because of bad policy, not because of demand. There's plenty of trees and there's plenty of mills. Like, don't let anyone tell you like it's about supply and demand. It's about taxation.
Right.
It's about tariffs. It's about punitive taxation due to policies that are there to punish people. Like you can see tens of thousands of jobs lost due to policy, um, not due to pandemic, like due to policy. And you can see people not wanting to work because of policy. Uh, and if you think that when you vote that there aren't consequences, that's very naive. And I'm not saying it because of the current president. I'm saying it as a general thing. You can pick any administration, and you will find some things that there's some things that happened under Trump's watch that like were failures in policy. That he did not get right, um, and cost people jobs and cost there was some pain and suffering there. But you know if you think you can just wish somebody away and check a block on a
Right.
piece of paper and it's not going to have massive impact, well, it is. Like I tell you, like one of the things that just blew my mind, I found out like I have a competitor in business. That competitor in business is being paid for with political money. And when I say political money, I mean like from the DNC. And in addition to that, that person is or that company is now federally funded, and they're not working because they're not in an election cycle. And so it's really interesting, to see people react to this stuff. But like, it has consequences. It has
They
consequences.
say people don't realize. They think I'm just, I'm little old Troy. I'm just going to go vote. I'm voting with, one way and a heavy, this way. And, every little drop will eventually overflow a glass. And your votes, um, the legitimate real votes that happen, they make change. And we've talked about it on here, a number of times. It's at the local level. It's school boards. It's local assemblies, local whatever councils, all that stuff. Sheriffs. I mean, we have election coming. We have election right here where I'm at now. They're doing early voting. I'm gonna go get my early vote in tomorrow. The election's next week. I'm just gonna get it knocked out. But it's it's sheriff, it's family judges, it's all this kind of stuff, and it starts there and it works us all the way up because I want to keep reminding people that you know the the people that made decisions in the 2020 election, those governors that decided that the last minute they were going to change how their state was going to carry out an election or count votes or whatever, and those assembly people and all that kind of stuff, they made those decisions. Like for example, Pennsylvania on what they were going to allow and not allow, or in Georgia and places like that, Arizona. It wasn't at the it was for a national election, but who you put into office locally and who made policy decisions locally drove not only how the election happened, but let's be quite honest, they drove what you've been living with in your community for the last 15 months as part of this pandemic. Your local reps and from state down were the ones that decided you needed to wear a mask here or do this or shut down this business or not allow this and stay this far apart. It was not the president. It was all your local folks. And people need to realize, if anything, stress on folks how important it is to vote accurately and legally. How important it is to vote in every single time you can. Toby, you like me have been over in foreign countries, and we have fought and seen our those on our left and right die and be maimed just to give people of another country the chance to vote, and they cherish that right. Sometimes for
Mm-hmm.
the first time in their lifetime do they get the ability to do that. Obviously, Iraq's a great example of that, but even Afghanistan too. Giving genders a chance to vote that never had that chance to vote before, and that kind of stuff. And I think we've talked about it here. It has sickened me to watch little old ladies and old men and people in Iraq even get pushed in wheelchairs down, miles down an IED alley, just to go down, cast one vote, stick their finger in ink, and then go for miles back and risk their lives to do that. I mean, that's. I wish the American people could just, you always see the Christmas Story where the ghosts take them forward and backward in time and see what's happening, what happened, based on what his decisions would be. I wish the American people could get transported and see, and I know you've had to have seen it, that we're talking about it, see people literally weep and risk their lives just to cast one vote. And to know they made that difference. And so many people in this country have no clue what they throw away when they don't do it. But anyways, I know that took a turn we probably weren't expecting.
Yeah.
Voting's big.
It's all good.
But yeah. So anything else? We've been going an hour. I didn't think we were going to go this long, but we get to rolling on topics, and which is no shortage of. Anything else you want to cover or highlight for our guests?
No, that's it. That's it.
Okay. All right, well, we'll let everybody go. It is 10:35 here on the East Coast, 9:35 Central Time in Texas, the southern studio. We will let everyone go. If you were tuned in later after the fact and listened to the show, hopefully you liked it. If you were listening and watching tonight, which a number of people were, I hope you guys enjoyed it too. Be sure and tune in next week here in Stu and the Nunn, 8 o'clock Eastern next week. I will have probably a guest host on with me. Toby, I don't think you can make it next week, so... And like I said, we will be announcing some new show format changes coming up real soon. And with that, I want to wish everybody a good night. Well, that wraps up another episode of the Stu and the Nunn Show, and we hope you had as much fun listening to it as we did hosting it for you. Don't forget to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. You can find all these links at stewandthenunn.com. We will talk to you again next Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central. Also, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Commodity Outdoors, Veteran Outdoors, Enlisted 9 Fight Company, Warrior Media Solutions, and BooHammer.com. Thank you again, and have a good night.